The company we chose to speak about for the financials of the airline industry is American Airlines Group Incorporated. They are a publicly traded airline holding company based out of Fort Worth, Texas. American Airlines is a major network air carrier who provides scheduled air transportation for passengers and cargo. Their most similar competitors would be Delta Airlines and United Airlines. American Airlines Group Incorporated's wholly owned subsidiaries consist of American Airlines Incorporated, Envoy Aviation Group Incorporated, PSA Airlines Incorporated, and Piedmont Airlines Incorporated. They also have third-party regional carriers that operate as American Eagle. Just to give you an overview of American Airlines financials, for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2021, their total operating revenue in 2021 was $29,882,000,000, which was a 78% increase over the year 2020, where their total operating revenue was only $17,337,000,000. Of course, that was due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So I thought it would be useful to provide some pre-pandemic numbers. In a normal operating revenue year, such as 2019, their operating revenue was $45,768,000,000. So you can see what a difference that is. Now their net loss in 2021 was $1,993,000,000, which was actually a 78% decrease over the year 2020, where their net loss was $8,885,000,000. So as you can see, they were hit very hard from the pandemic. And just to give you an idea of a pre-pandemic year in 2019, they actually had a net income of $1,686,000,000. Now their basic earnings per share of common stock in 2021, they had a loss of $3.09 per share. In 2020, they had a huge loss per share of $18.36. And then again, to give you an idea of a pre-pandemic year, in 2019, they actually had a gain of $3.80 per share. Revenue recognition is handled differently in the airline business. It is not recognized as passenger revenue until transportation has actually been provided. Now, this includes all revenues generated from transportation, such as the baggage fees, the seat fees, and any in-flight services. In 2021, passenger revenue was $23,896,000,000, which was up considerably over 2020. This is because more people started to travel again in 2021 after some of the COVID travel bans were lifted and the vaccine became more readily available. The revenue from ticket sales for transportation not yet provided is recorded as air traffic liability on the balance sheet. Air traffic liability is comprised of tickets sold for future travel, along with estimated future refunds and exchanges of tickets sold for past travel. American uses an analysis of their historical data to estimate future refunds and exchanges. For 2021, their air traffic liability was $6,087,000,000, which was up from 2020 due to all the canceled reservations from the pandemic. While most businesses have intangible assets, American Airlines has some that are unique to the airline industry. On the balance sheet, American Airlines lists definite-lived intangible assets of $156 million in 2021 compared to $197 million in 2020. These intangible assets include domestic airport slots, customer relationships, marketing agreements, trade names, airport gate leasehold rights, and accumulated amortization. Now, I'm sure you can tell out of these, domestic airport slots and airport gate leasehold rights are specific to the airline industry. They are amortized on a straight line basis over 25 years. Indefinite-lived intangible assets include certain domestic airport slots, international slots, and route authorities. American assesses these assets for impairment annually on October 1st, or more often if circumstances indicate that the fair value may be lower than the carrying value. In 2021, American has $1.8 billion of indefinite-lived intangible assets with no asset impairments. Aircraft fuel is one of the largest single components of operating expenses for American Airlines. In 2021, it was $6.8 billion, which was a 99.6% increase over 2020. Now, this is actually due to two factors. The increase in fuel usage, which obviously flying more is going to increase your fuel usage, and they did start flying more as the travel bans from the pandemic were lifted. And it's also due to the rise in fuel costs. American does not enter into contracts to hedge their fuel consumption, so they're actually fully exposed to any changing fuel prices that are driven by the economy. Other items from the consolidated financial statements that are worth mentioning are the net operating special items, which increased from $966 million in 2020 to $4.455 billion in 2021. This was mainly due to an increase in payroll support program financial assistance, which was from the pandemic, fleet impairment charges, and fleet restructuring expenses. The latter are both due to the earlier retirement of aircraft than originally planned, which was driven by the severe decline in air travel caused by the pandemic. American Airlines uses several key performance indicators that are specific to the airline industry to give a clearer picture of how the airline is doing overall compared to its competitors. These indicators also demonstrate to investors the future performance of the airline and where there are potential investment opportunities. The first is revenue passenger mile. This indicator shows which airlines are flying the most passenger miles. Next is the available seat miles. This indicator tells which airline flies the most miles and how they are adjusting their capacity over time. Next, we have the passenger load factor. This indicator shows which airplanes have more passengers. And then we have the yield, which is a measure of airline revenue. And lastly, the passenger revenue per available seat mile. This indicator shows which airlines earn the most passenger revenue per mile flown. Now, these key performance indicators have all shown a significant increase in 2021 compared to 2020.